Hello, I'm D-Face and you're watching Fresh Milk TV. Everything started in my world. You'd have to go back quite far to sort of, I guess, pinpoint like the beginnings of my inspiration and influences, and that would be as a kid growing up in London, at school, not very brilliant at school, by far from it, and trying to find something that I was good at or interested in that wasn't an education. And I discovered skateboarding and graffiti almost simultaneously, and that was sort of handed to me by the older kids at school, and that became my passion. You know, I dreamt about skateboarding. I spent every day doodling and drawing, dreaming of skateboarding. That led me to fail my education, if I'm honest, because all I wanted to do is the thing that the school didn't want me to do. And this is going back at a time when skateboarding was very much considered to be like an outcast thing to do. There was no way you could be a professional skateboarder. I didn't really understand skateboarding. All I knew is that you had Thrasher magazine, you had skateboard graphics, and you had professional skateboarders. And in my world, to do the graphics on your board, you had to be a professional skateboarder. My mum insisted I had an education. She thought education was really important, so she kept putting me back into the education system. So I did retake exams. I then did a photography course, and all the time all I was doing is getting high and skateboarding and failing. And then finally I found myself on a course that was studying animation, illustration, graphic design. It was like 3 courses in one. And it was the first time that anybody had explained to me what I was into, and that there was an angle that you could be a professional artist. And it was that point when they explained that to me that it was like a touch paper to a firework. I was like, oh, okay, all these things I've always wanted to do and be into can lead to somewhere, as opposed to being told, which I had been told, that they were like dead-end, flaky things to do. So I studied really hard, and I studied in illustration, graphic design and animation, and I passed that, and I got a job working in design. And it was very quickly realised that this wasn't the world that I wanted to be part of. The thing that I'd been studying was complete creative freedom and doing what I wanted to do. Looking back at doing something I loved doing, and that connected the skateboarding and the graffiti that I'd always been dabbling with, and I just started drawing stickers. I just thought of doing something different. There was no really like big game plan. It was as simple as I'm drawing in a layout pad. If I changed the layout pad to sticky plastic and I cut them out, I could stick them up on my way home. That was it. I just started doing that one evening, and as soon as I did that first sticker, I was like, this is it. This makes sense of all the things I've been into, all the little subcultures within those cultures, and it was just like took off from there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was a real point of where I had a fairly decent job and I was getting paid fairly decent money, but I hated it. And I was spending a lot of my own time doing my own, like working through the night, going out every evening, putting posters and stickers up. People like Shepherd would come over and I'd drive them around, we'd put posters up. And it was getting to the point where I was doing very little sleeping and doing a lot of my own work, and then having to go to work and try and continue my job to pay my rent. And at that point I was like, something has to stop. One or the other has to go. Either I stop doing my own thing that I love but doesn't pay for anything, or I continue doing my job, which I hate, but pays me a salary. And I came in one day and the guy that was working with me, the senior director, had been made redundant overnight, and he'd come in and he was clearing his desk and he was like, yeah, I've got to go and try and find a new job. And at that point I was like, I never want to be in that position. So I made the decision there and then that I was going to quit as quickly as I could, save some money, quickly get out and concentrate on my own work. And it was really as like organic as that. It was making that decision. I clearly remember it like it was yesterday. I was like, am I going to do this? Am I not going to do this? And I made the decision to do it. And you know, it was incredibly tough at that time to do that, but I don't regret it for 1 minute at all. My parents grew up hating their jobs, and I looked at them hating their jobs, wishing their days away. And as a kid, I remember thinking, I really don't want to do that. I'd never want to wish my days away. It's more about the comic book artist that Roy Lichtenstein was inspired by. And I was influenced by pop art as a kid. You know, it was the first art movement I'd seen, or art in fact, other than skateboard graphics, which I was told weren't art. When my mum took me to a gallery, she'd be like, look at this amazing Constable or Turner or whoever. Isn't it incredible, the technique? And I'd be like, yeah, it's amazing, but I have no emotional connection to it other than, wow, isn't it a beautiful painting? And it wasn't until I saw pop art that I feel that it spoke the language that I was understanding and relevant to me in my day. And so that's always stuck with me. Skateboard graphics and pop art to me have almost been the same. And I like that strong black outline that comes from comic books. And obviously Liechtenstein was the first artist that took that visual aesthetic and took it into a gallery environment. For me, pop art always fell short because whilst it was meant to be a critique of mass culture, consumer culture, it became a celebration of it. And for me, we now know the problems that goes with consumer culture. We know the refuge of our consumption. And my work is trying to take the pop art aesthetic, which people understand, but turn it and to make it relevant to today's society, which I think this painting behind sort of demonstrates. The message has always been the same, which is to look at what we surround ourselves with and question what we surround ourselves with. And that started as the humble sticker or the humble poster, which was interrupting the advertising that we've become familiar and associated with, and to get people to question why it's there, what it's doing there. And that's all I really wanted to ever do, is to just get people to stop and maybe introduce art into their life. And it's not like a critique of Coke. I'm not saying don't drink Coke, because I drink Coke, but it's like if you're faced with a alternative, maybe consider that alternative, or at least consider the damage that maybe drinking that or eating that or wearing that does, and look at maybe supporting the community. And that's really the sort of the message, was just being a bit more mindful of our involvement in the world. Shepherd and the London police are like old friends. You know, they were really the first people that I was familiar with that were doing something similar. Shepherd was definitely a pre-runner. The London police were in Amsterdam and were doing black and white characters. So as soon as I discovered their work and the similarities in what they were doing and what I was doing, it was like an instant friendship. And it was the very early days of the internet. So we were all sort of discovering this community amongst ourselves. Like, oh, there's a guy in Amsterdam that's doing something similar to the guy in London. Oh, and there's a guy in San Francisco or LA that's doing something similar to what I'm doing here in London. And when it gave you the power to email those people and connect with those people, that community started forming. And I think we were probably the first art movement that we used to really embrace the internet. So those people have been lifelong friends. You know, I've known Shepherd for nearly 20 years. So, you know, when he first came to London in '99 for like a little print show, I was the guy that was like, let's go drive around and put posters up. And I did that for him every time he came over. And the same with the London police. So that's not really, I don't ever really see that as like collaboration. I just see that as like working with my friends. And that's really what I do with Shepherd. I haven't really collaborated with London police in a print or in a painting, but we will do one day. You know, we're good friends. It's just a case of when that happens. It's not like we're trying to force it to happen. It's just a really nice situation. And I have a lot of friends within this community, and that's one of the best things about it, is getting to travel, getting to paint, and getting to meet some amazing artists as I go around the world.
Bring your booty, bring it right here. Bring your booty,
It's an exploration in this genre, and it's, I think, a very good demonstration of how far it's come and the amount of artists that are doing something that is connected to, but at the same time completely disconnected to street art and graffiti, but has become part of this culture, visual culture at least. This show is a collaboration between Stolen Space and Think Space, which is a gallery in LA that we've long-term been friends and worked with individual artists. And this was really Think Space being like, let's do this show, let's make a regular format that everyone has to adhere to. And also it makes these pieces very affordable, because this scene's come a long way, so within that it means that the artist prices have escalated, and it's nice to give people the opportunity to buy a smaller piece that doesn't have that higher price tag. And also it's like a visual feast, you know, it's like me as a kid walking in here, it's like a kid in a sweet shop. There's so much to look at, you're like, I don't know which one to look at first. And that's what it should be exciting. It's like the stuff in the streets where there's so much going on, you're not quite sure if you're absorbing any of it. This show you have to come back to several times to kind of take in all the individual artists who are in it. Yeah, these are all created specifically for this exhibition. They're all new work from over 120 artists, I think it was at last count. The size is the restriction, and that's it. I mean, you can see that not everyone's listened directly to that size, but as close as you can ever expect anyone to. So yeah, it makes it easier to hang, and obviously if you ask that many people to do a painting, you'll end up with such a variety of scale, it makes it impossible to curate it and hang it. So it's a very systematic approach to showing this vast amount of artists. It works a little bit like that in some respects, but equally, because I've seen so much, maybe I'm not the best person to be in the jury on that. But obviously I travel a lot with my work, and there's artists I run into that I've already seen or haven't seen before, and I get to see their work, and I'm like, it's amazing. Do you do canvases? Do you work with a gallery? Are you interested in doing this in London? And it's very fluid and organic. It's not like, I want to show you, we want to have a show, you got to come here, you got to come to London, we're the best gallery in the world. It's not like that. It's like, hey, I work and own a gallery, I represent artists, I try and do it correctly, I try and do it from an artist's point of view. Come and have a look, come and see what you think. How does that work in your world? And some artists are like, I don't want to do gallery shows. And I'm like, that's great, that's cool. The thing is, like, the idea of opening a gallery or owning a gallery that shows street art was purely because when I was travelling, a lot of the people, myself included, were doing jobs that were supplementing their income to allow them to do their own art. And it was never like, oh, we want to be street artists. It was like, we're just doing stuff in the street because we love it. But we also make canvases and sculptures in our studios or in our homes. And wouldn't it be great if we could sell them? It wasn't like, oh, we don't want to sell them. It was, wouldn't it be great if we could pay for this whole thing to coexist and live and be artists full-time and not just be artists part-time, which is what we were being. I was meeting these amazing artists and seeing the amazing work they were producing that was outside of the street. It was on canvas. It was whatever they wanted it to be. So it made perfect sense to have a place, an environment that was inside where they could showcase that and hopefully sell it. And I, for a long time, was looking for someone to do that. I was like, when's someone going to open a gallery that shows street art? Like, how long is it going to take for someone to do this? It's ridiculous. I never imagined it would be me. It wasn't like I went out and was like, yeah, I'm going to be like the first places to open a street art gallery. It was just really that I felt it was a necessity, for myself, but also for other people. Yeah, the street part can be just cut out of that equation, It was never, I never intended it to be street art. It was just this other thing, and I never thought of myself as an artist either, if I'm honest. It was just me doing this thing that was my own idle fixation and fascination and interest. And it became something, there was a few people doing it at the same time, and it just grew and developed, and it became a scene, and within that scene it became successful within the art world and also successful as in a public culture. But I never liked the word street art. Don't like it now. I never liked it then. I find when you categorise something, it starts to have its own limitations, and it shouldn't do that. I think as an artist you should be able to make music. You should go and be able to do performance art. You can do sculpture. It doesn't matter. If it's within the street, then it's street art. But when it's in a gallery, it's not street art. It's art. So I've never tried to make this a street art gallery. The work we show is from a genre that has a background in street art, but isn't solely exclusively street art.